Hey guys, sorry I'm a little bit late starting here, but I am still unfortunately doing my day job while I'm out here, so I had to finish something up real quick. So I have these two Amicus briefs, and we're gonna go over them, and we'll kind of skim through them. I unfortunately don't have the time to like read through them word for word on a live stream because I have to get back out to San Bernardino where Omar lives, and I'm pretty far from there. So I'm gonna tell you something weird that happened yesterday. I was getting an Uber out there because yes, it's very expensive, but it also cut the time in half, like more than in half. And so I was like, fuck it. I'd rather just, you know, pay the money and not spend 3 hours on the train or whatever. So this guy's like, I get in the car and this guy's like, he seems like a normal guy. And he's like, I can cancel this Uber ride and I will just drive you there for cheaper if you like just give me the money or whatever. And I'm thinking like this could go wrong, right? This could go wrong in a lot of ways. Uh, but then I was just kind of like, all right, fine, fine. And so he drove me all the way out there, and then he waited for me and drove me all the way back. And so I just gave him all the money, so there was no like Uber service fee or anything like that. And then today I'm like, hey man, I need to go back where I was yesterday. Can you just come pick me up? So like somehow I ended up with a driver, a very expensive driver, but a driver nonetheless. So yeah, but I'll be going back out there after work. Yeah, no, I thought about just I was just like oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, but at the same time I was like it would save me so much time if I did this, and he didn't turn out to be a murderer. So I'm gonna try anyways, and so that's how I got from A to B. But yeah, nice guy. His name's Ryan. Hi Ryan. I don't know if he's watching this. Um, anyways, let's go over the one from this random attorney first. So we have one from the random attorney, and then we have one that's from a couple of advocacy groups out in California. This is all relating to kind of the 47.1 stuff, and we'll see what they have to say there. A lot of it's really frustrating. I did skim through the early parts of it, and I was not impressed. But like I've always say, like I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what the legal implications of this stuff is. I can only tell you what I think about it, and what I think about it right now is it's a bunch of bullshit. But we'll find out. Also, obviously, I'm going to sound a little bit different because I don't have my regular mic. So hopefully it's okay. Okay. Give me just a second here. I don't have my giant water bottle, but I do have a giant water bottle. So give me 1 second. Okay. Lise Dorsey is an attorney and survivor of sexual harassment and abuses of power who now advocates for stronger statutory protections from survivors and for stronger legal remedies for people subject to retaliatory lawsuits. Ms. Dorsey herself was subjected to a retaliatory defamation lawsuit in Virginia after reporting her sexual harassment to the university where it happened and later sharing her experience with the public through the media. To achieve her advocacy goals, Ms. Dorsey has supported stronger anti-SLAPP protections and denounced retaliatory lawsuits against survivors. As relevant here, Ms. Dorsey has a strong interest in advocating for survivors of sexual harassment faced with painful and expensive litigation. She also has a strong interest in aiding courts in upholding codified protections for survivors, like California's Protecting Survivors from Weaponizing Defamation Lawsuits Act. That is a mouthful. So that no survivor must endure what Ms. Dorsey endured over a year and a half of litigation against her harasser. So, initial thoughts. I feel sorry that she went through what she went through. I don't know really anything about this woman except what we're reading right here, so I am taking this at face value that that's what happened, and because I have no reason not to believe that. But I will say, like, I feel sorry that happened to her. However, this does not feel like an appropriate way to kind of deal with it to me. So, first of all, it's assuming that this person was actually sexually harassed when there's plenty of evidence to the contrary. It's also assuming that Blake Lively's situation is anything like Miss Dorsey's. So I don't know, like the person who is being accused here, Justin Baldoni, does not seem to be actually guilty of anything in the way of harassment. So let's see, what else was she talking about? Okay, yeah. So also, it does not help to like prematurely judge these situations, especially where it's like really questionable. The sexual harassment claims are really questionable. It does not really help to insert yourself into this situation and kind of go, all in for Blake or whatever, and like act like Justin is already guilty. And I don't know. I just don't think that is very helpful, because there might be actual people who need help with shit like this. And by the time you get to them, your word's going to mean nothing because you wasted your time blasting someone who didn't deserve it. So you kind of suck for that. All right. There are better ways that you can help people so that they don't have to feel the way that you did. Way better ways. All right. But why now? Yeah, great question. I don't know. Okay. This is where I'm going to skim over a lot of this shit. Ms. Dorsey provides a unique perspective on retaliatory lawsuits as a victim of one herself, and she also speaks to how Virginia's anti-SLAPP statute failed to protect her from such retaliation. Again, very sorry that happened, but there are more appropriate ways, I feel like, to use your experience than to do something like this, which could be harmful to an actual victim in this scenario. So don't forget that Justin Baldoni had his story of his own abuse removed from a podcast because Blake came out and accused him of all this. So I really, really don't like this filing. All right. As part of her advocacy, Ms. Dorsey can also speak to how state legislatures can protect a survivor's right to come forward and tell her story without facing the chilling effects of retaliatory litigation from their harasser. I mean, but if you're doing this, and if you're acting like this, then you're also stopping people who are being targeted with false claims from telling their story or from getting their name cleared. Like, I don't like that. Ms. Dorsey's proposed brief thus offers valuable additional perspective beyond that submitted by the parties on the importance of protecting survivors from abuses of the legal process for retaliation. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Sorry. Even though she's lying, in my opinion, about Justin Baldoni sexually harassing her, they have done quite an adequate job of exploiting these kinds of things in their filings. So like they bring up probably everything that she's going to say here. I really disagree with this. Further, Ms. Dorsey's proposed brief describes how this case is not unique, but a common retaliation tactic used by harassers to chill speech and silence their victims. Therefore, Ms. Dorsey's proposed brief provides a unique perspective from a survivor who was not afforded the same protection against retaliatory lawsuits that Ms. Lively seeks to invoke in this lawsuit, thereby supplying unique information, which may further assist the court. Sorry, but no. Again, I really don't think this is going to assist the court in any way, shape, or form. Honestly, to me, it seems like kind of a I don't want to say an attention grab, because I don't know if that's what this is, but it's definitely it feels like sort of a press tactic to me, especially with the organizations coming out and doing one as well. That's what it feels like to me. So 1 second, guys. Hold on. So I see some people, and this is not the first time, because I saw this in other comments on other platforms. They'll say, like, can we write on Justin's behalf or whatever? Can we do this or that? I would not recommend that. That's not a good idea. Justin has good representation. Blake's team is already accusing him of trying to litigate in the press and having the public kind of harass the court with documents, letters, etc. When this is not something we should be doing. That's just my opinion. I don't think that's a good idea, but that's just me. So that's not to say anyone's bad for having that thought or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, it's not a good idea to harass the judge or the court with papers, especially when Justin definitely has a good team representing him and all that. All right. Let me get to the actual document here. 1 sec. Okay. We'll get to the background then. Sorry, I keep hearing the housekeeping ladies outside the door. I'm like, are you coming here? Are you coming here? Because I need to put up the do not disturb sign. All right. Elise Dorsey is an attorney and advocate for survivors of sexual harassment. We pretty much read this up in the motion for leave to file. Okay. Ms. Lively and Ms. Dorsey's experiences show that sexual harassment remains deeply entrenched in the American workplace. When was anyone, shown to have actually sexually harassed her? Can you tell me that? Because as far as I know, nothing has been determined. So. In just about every industry, sexual harassment derails careers, shatters confidence, and silences voices. The Me Too movement exposed the wide nature of such misconduct and empowered survivors to share their experiences. But recent backlash has ushered in a troubling rise in retaliatory defamation lawsuits, which intimidate and stun survivors into inaction. These retaliatory lawsuits are a black mark on our legal system, undermining the fundamental rights of whistleblowers and rendering it nearly impossible to report misconduct. And I'm not going to deny that that's a troubling thing, right? But that's not what's happening here. And so that's why it irritates me that they're bringing it up right here. Miss Dorsey's story, like Miss Lively's, exemplifies this disturbing trend. After overcoming years of sexual harassment from her law professor and then boss, Miss Dorsey faced a retaliatory defamation lawsuit seeking $108 million in damages after telling her story. Okay, so this has nothing to do with, this is nothing like Blake's situation then. So why are you comparing the two? Years of sexual harassment from a professor and a boss. No. There's nothing like what Blake Lively's claimed. That was certainly the case for Miss Dorsey. She saw coming forward as the only way to protect vulnerable women. And like I said, admirable, and I'm sorry that happened to her. However, this is misplaced. Miss Dorsey first reported the now former professor to the university, which conducted an investigation lasting approximately 20 months and found multiple causes for termination. After this protracted and costly process, Miss Dorsey and her co-defendant were forced to endure yet another 18 months of exhausting, expensive, and intrusive retaliatory litigation. The plaintiff in the litigation, Miss Dorsey's former law professor, admitted in private text messages to his friends that he filed the litigation to bankrupt his accusers, not with any expectation of winning his defamation claims. He wrote, "Maybe defamation for fun, but not to win." He explicitly stated that he wanted to bankrupt Miss Dorsey and the other defendant as punishment for speaking out. So this has nothing to do, again, this is you can't even compare these things. This is ridiculous. First of all, you have any idea that he's ever even done anything that he's been accused of? And second, we're talking here about her situation, which is a really long, involved thing. And here she's just saying, well, I was working on a set of a film with this guy and he smelled me or something stupid like that. There's a video showing that that's not exactly how that happened. He said I smelled good. Okay. All right. By providing a legal shield, anti-SLAPP laws can empower whistleblowers like Miss Dorsey and Miss Lively to share their experiences without the threat of protracted retaliatory litigation. By imposing financial consequences on those who bring SLAPPs, the Protecting Survivors Act changes the calculus, adding a financial downside for SLAPP plaintiffs and thus deterring bad faith harassers from weaponizing the courts and wasting valuable judicial resources. Dude, Elise's experience shows that without these critical remedies, anti-SLAPP statutes offer only illusory protection, forcing survivors to choose between silence and financial ruin, while allowing abusers to escape meaningful accountability and perpetrating misconduct in the workplace. So why don't you go and talk about this and bring awareness to this issue on your own, rather than insert yourself into this lawsuit between people whose situation is nothing like yours? Not to mention this is a New York lawsuit. But I don't know if that means anything really. It's just crazy. Also, I'm getting really irritated with the painting this person, Elise, as a noble person who's trying to help victims and punish abusers, basically, right? And then comparing her to Blake Lively, who's actually just kind of a bitch. Sorry. Accepting Mr. Baldoni's and the Wayfarer Party's attack on the Protecting Survivors Act would destroy a crucial safeguard for all whistleblowers. This court should not endorse this effort to punish survivors who share their stories, nor should it entertain Mr. Baldoni's and the Wayfarer Party's attempt to invalidate the remedial provisions contained in the Protecting Survivors Act. Look, lady, the person you're talking about is not a survivor. They should absolutely fight that. Jesus. Nobody's punishing any survivors by not giving this entitled asshole. Sorry, that was my work computer. By not giving this entitled asshole the time of day. Okay. One sec. I'm like, so like I can only speak for myself, and if I go off the mic, it's because I'm drinking water. You can't see me doing it now, but you know what I'm doing. Okay. So I can only speak for myself. Then this lady can only speak for herself, right? So it's different for everybody. And also people are allowed to have, even if you've been through something involving abuse or harassment or something terrible like that, you're allowed to take a step back and be like, hey, what this person's saying, it doesn't add up. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't mean you are sitting here wanting to bag on people who come forward with abuse claims. It's not like an enjoyable thing to do that, especially when you've been through it yourself. So I don't like this. I feel like these people assume also that all survivors are on board with this, kind of means of, in my opinion, trashing Justin and uplifting Blake. And I know that they're talking about the specific laws and stuff, but when you assume his guilt the way that they're doing in this writing, that's absolutely, in my opinion, a dig at his reputation. So it's just frustrating. Okay. Background. We don't need to go through the background too much. I mean, we know this already, but on March 20th, Ms. Lively filed her pending motion to dismiss, arguing that the Protecting Survivors Act shields her from retaliatory defamation suits, such as Mr. Baldoni's and the Wayfarer Party's claims. Again, the problem is Blake lied. So, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. There's nothing else to say about that. The Wayfarer Parties opposed Ms. Lively's motion, claiming her statements were malicious and fabricated. They also challenged the constitutionality of the Protecting Survivors Act. And this is why they're, upset, apparently. Ms. Lively's reply emphasized her reasonable basis for sexual harassment allegations and argued that the Wayfarer Parties failed to plausibly allege actual malice. Okay. While the rights to free speech and to workplaces free from discrimination and harassment are well enshrined in our legal system, the path to speaking out against sexual harassment remains incredibly costly and full of barriers for survivors. What does that have to do with this, though? I mean, I guess if you take her claims at face value, sure, but that's a huge mistake, in my opinion, so I don't know why you're doing this. Our court system should not be among those barriers. We must not allow our justice system to become complicit in silencing whistleblowers. Maybe it shouldn't also be complicit in punishing people who didn't actually do what they're accused of. You don't think that's a problem? As Miss Lively and Miss Dorsey's story reveal, you know what? The next time they continue to conflate these two stories, and I'm absolutely not fucking with that. So the next time I read that, I'm just skimming over it. Fuck that. All right. This is just talking about sexual harassment in the workplace, retaliatory lawsuits. I'm not going over all that history. I already posted these links elsewhere if you guys want to read the whole thing yourselves. Elise Dorsey's story and how Virginia's anti-SLAPP statute failed to protect her. Again, I'm sorry you went through this. Sounds terrible. And I appreciate to an extent that she's like trying to do some good with her experience. However, she's going about it the wrong way, in a way that I feel is harmful and frankly irritating. So I'm not going to read through her story here because this has nothing to do with her. It's nothing like her situation, and I don't want to like give any credibility to that. So I'm not going to pay attention to it. Sorry. Unwanted sexual relationship. Exactly. This is not fucking nothing to do with you and your experience. I'm sorry. You don't belong on this court docket. If she wants to go and like write about her experience elsewhere, I might read that. Yeah, I might like to hear about that some more and why she feels like these laws are so important. But take your shit out of the court here where it doesn't belong. Like that's just how I feel about it. And I don't know, maybe the lawyers or whoever will law tubers will have a different opinion, but unfortunately to me this is just looks like you're doing way too much here. Yeah, so this is all about her story and shit. Anti-SLAPP in California and the importance of its remedies provision to survivors of sexual assault and harassment. Well, we kind of know about that from what we've read in Blake's, you know. In Virginia, Miss Dorsey and fellow GMU law graduate were subject to the weak protection of Virginia's anti-SLAPP statute. So we're not even talking about California. Here's California anti-SLAPP. Mr. Baldoni's and the Wayfarer Party's challenge to the Protecting Survivors Act undermines California's anti-SLAPP legislation. Okay. Mr. Baldoni's and the Wayfarer Party's Noor-Pennington challenge to the Protecting Survivors Act is an improper collateral attack on anti-SLAPP generally. Although framed as a critique of the Protecting Survivors Act remedies, the argument effectively treats Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11 as both the floor and the ceiling for permissible sanctions. Although Rule 11 serves as a foundational safeguard against improper filings in federal court, it does not represent the upper limit of financial consequences a state legislature may impose for wrongful litigation. Okay, well, there's no wrongful litigation on the part of Wayfarer that I can see. So. Okay. The Protecting Survivors Act was enacted for the exact purpose and intent that Blake Lively raises here. Oh, fuck you. To prohibit the type of vexatious SLAPP litigation Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties filed against her for speaking out about the sexual harassment and retaliation she experienced. That's not the problem. The problem is that she lied. Jesus, fuck me, Christ. Are you... I hate you right now. I'm sorry. I can't. Virginia's anti-SLAPP law failed to protect Miss Dorsey from the devastating financial and emotional toll of a harassing lawsuit designed to subvert the legal system and silence her. And okay, so while she could do, again, a lot of good with that experience if she chose to, she's instead using this to attack who I believe is an innocent person, who I believe is a good man. So I'm not going to give this person any more of my time. Sorry. We can move on to the next one. Fucking bullshit. All right, let me move my... There you go, so you can see that better. I wish that lady no harm. Obviously, I'm sorry that she went through what she went through, but like, what you're doing isn't right. Okay. So this is a few organizations out in California that filed this one. Let's see. Equal Rights Advocates, the California Employment Lawyers Association, and the California Women's Law Center. Okay. I cannot see this very well. Hopefully you can still read that, guys. Give me 1 second. I need to drink. Okay. Yeah, no, the last one made me pretty mad. Yeah. Anyways. We're just going to move down to the actual... We're going to skip over the leave part. I'm going to skim over this one again the same way I did the last one, because there's going to be a lot on here that I'm just like, I'm not interested in going over a bunch of legal history and shit right now. I've got limited time, so... Right. Equal Rights Advocates is a national nonprofit legal organization that advocates for gender justice in workplaces and schools across the country. Okay. Since its founding in 1974, ERA has been fighting on the front lines of social justice to protect and advance rights and opportunities for women, girls, and people of all gender identities through litigating groundbreaking legal cases on behalf of workers who have experienced civil rights violations, including sexual harassment and other forms of discrimination. Great. Go help those people. That's not what you're doing here. California Employment Lawyers Association is a statewide organization of more than 1,300 California attorneys whose members primarily represent employees in a wide range of employment cases, including actions enforcing California's law prohibiting discrimination, harassment, and retaliation in employment. The organization has taken a leading role in advancing and protecting the rights of California workers, including advocating for and proposing legislation, as well as submitting amicus briefs and letters and appearing before the California Supreme Court, California appellate courts, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in employment rights cases, including numerous cases involving the interpretation of relevant employment laws. Okay. California Women's Law Center is a statewide nonprofit law and policy center dedicated to advancing the civil rights of women and girls. The CWLC's mission is to create a more just and equitable society by breaking down barriers and advancing the potential of women and girls through impact litigation, policy advocacy, and education. Since its inception in 1989, CWLC has placed particular emphasis on eradicating all forms of discrimination and violence against women. You know what? Again, go help those people. You're not doing that here. All right. This is like the most irritating thing about this, because it's like you'll see. One of Time Magazine's top 100 influential people of 2025, go fuck yourself, Blake Lively is anything but an average person. Fuck you, man. I can't. But her experience of being sued for defamation after speaking out about sexual harassment is all too common. Yes, if you're lying about the sexual harassment, you should be sued. I mean, Jesus Christ, why is this such a hard concept to grasp? That doesn't help victims. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help people who've been through shit like this in the past. It doesn't help people who are facing litigation now. It doesn't help anyone because she lied about what she went through. Sorry. That's how I see it. Like, I don't find this fucking helpful at all. It's actually really inappropriate and embarrassing, quite frankly. Because when people do shit like this, and they kind of direct this at the wrong people, it makes it harder for like people who actually need help like this, and for people who actually need... Jesus Christ. Sorry, I got a text. I don't even remember what I was saying, guys. Anyways, people who need help like this and people who need people to speak up for them like this, and they're directing it at innocent people or the wrong people, it's embarrassing then, because if they come to your aid on your behalf, they're gonna be like, well, that doesn't mean anything, because remember when they went hard after that guy who didn't do anything wrong? So what a waste of fucking time. What a waste of fucking resources. It's kind of a disgrace, in my opinion. And if you want to argue like this is just about the laws that they said it was like unconstitutional or whatever, you can argue that without assuming his guilt and putting this out there into the universe as if he is already guilty and as if she's some kind of saint. This is ridiculous. There we go. It's... All right, we'll read this part. To combat this onslaught of retaliatory defamation suits, in 2023, ERA joined Amicus Curiae, California Employment Lawyers Association, to draft and champion the passage of Assembly Bill 933. This legislation clarified that an individual's communication regarding an incident of sexual assault, harassment, or discrimination they experience is privileged, provided it was made without malice. It also created a fee-shifting provision and authorized recovery of damages. The intent of AB 933 was to protect survivors from defamation lawsuits filed against them, to deter abusers from filing retaliatory defamation suits, and to combat the pervasive silencing of survivors that enables sexual harassment and assault to persist at epidemic rates. Okay, but this is a problem when the abuser is the one who's lying about being abused or harassed. Because at that point, you're just enabling some entitled, privileged, abusive asshole who said horrible things about someone who absolutely did not do anything that they were being accused of. And you're punishing them for what? Doing nothing? Doing nothing wrong? Like they're not supposed to fight back? You're not supposed to be able to sue them for defamation after that person tried to ruin their life and lied about being abused? Like, I don't understand. This action is the first test of AB 933, and survivors are watching. If the law does not protect a powerful and resourced person such as Miss Lively, then survivors without power or resources, the vast majority, will not risk speaking out about sexual assault or harassment at all. Fuck you. But seriously? Miss Lively doesn't need your protection. Jesus Christ. Survivors are watching. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. They are watching, but if somebody's lying about being harassed and they're trying to improperly use this law that's meant to protect those actual survivors or victims, whatever you want to call it, then I would hope that this would not go the way of Blake Lively, you know, that she wouldn't be able to exploit this law successfully. The Me Too movement taught us the result of that silence: systemic and unchecked abuse at great personal and societal cost. Again, that's not what's happening here. Okay. Defamation lawsuits are a form of retaliation that chill reports of sexual assault and harassment, unless the person was actually defaming them, you know, the person in question, because they did not actually harass or assault anyone. Sexual assault and harassment are common yet vastly underreported. Thanks for bringing that up, guys. Don't really know what it has to do with this case here, so maybe you could take it elsewhere. Abusers weaponize defamation lawsuits against survivors to silence them and deflect culpability. Okay, that's not what's happening here, though. You're assuming that it is. They're like already assuming, like I said, already assuming his guilt, already assuming that everything she says is true. You're not talking about Darvo. Do not talk about fucking Darvo here right now. Oh, no, I'm done with this. I'm pretty much done here. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You don't get to you pull out fucking Darvo to try to confuse people into believing Blake Lively or whatever. Jesus Christ. Where'd you learn that, on a TikTok? Congrats. If they knew like anything about like really what Darvo is and how that works, they would not be applying it to Blake Lively's situation at all. So go fuck yourself. Okay, we're still talking about retaliatory defamation. I don't see any in the current case, so I can't really help you guys with that. This is just talking about the law. AB 933. Preventing abusive discovery. Again, go help somebody who's actually having this problem, and I wouldn't not have anything, like I wouldn't feel anything wrong about what they're saying if they were to go actually help someone who actually needs their help. Against this backdrop of existing law, which enabled abusers to proceed to discovery in most defamation cases, AB 933 was meant to ensure that a harasser's allegation that a survivor was lying about the underlying harassment would no longer be sufficient to survive a motion to dismiss, where pleadings establish a reasonable basis for the alleged defamatory statements. I don't think that we... I mean, I will have to wait and see what the judge says about that. So it could be a while. All right. Compensating survivors and deterring the filing of abusive and retaliatory lawsuits. We're going to skim over that. Denying Ms. Lively's motion to dismiss would undermine the AB 933 framework and deter future survivor reports of sexual assault and harassment. Okay, so either grant Ms. Lively's motion to dismiss, or else you've basically failed all victims of assault and harassment, and you are stopping people from coming forward about their abuse. Is that what we're saying here? I mean, seriously. I feel like I I'm using a lot of language today. But seriously, fuck that. I understand that they have a vested interest in this law, but if the law isn't serving the people it's meant to help and it's hurting people who don't deserve it, then maybe it should be challenged. Sorry, but I don't really feel like I have any sympathy for these people's arguments at all. Even as somebody who really does want to see these protections help people who need it. And I'll say like the same thing I said at the end of last week. It sucks to see somebody like Blake Lively forego the protections that are in place and say no to investigation on 3 separate occasions and is now trying to stop one, regardless of the lawsuit or not. It sucks to see that and wish like there's so many people out there who wish they would have had those protections, who wish they, had the privileges that she has and the benefit of the doubt that she has. And to see her just kind of pass that over because she had an alternate agenda is a very frustrating and difficult thing to see. And so to have these organizations and that one random lady come forward with this right now and assume his guilt feels like shit. As somebody who's actually been through some of the horrible things that she's, accusing him of, not specifically, obviously, but just abuse in general, it feels like shit to read this. This doesn't feel like it's protecting anybody. If anything, it just makes me feel, I don't know, kind of not hopeless, man. That's a really extreme word, but just like kind of negative about like a negative outlook in general on these kinds of organizations and the things that they're doing because they don't care who they hurt in the process. And it really does feel like it's more like just me, you know what I mean? Like just you don't actually care about the person on the other end of this lawsuit at all. You just care about your vested interest in this bill or whatever. All right. Well, guys, I got to get back to work and then I got to get over to Omar's and it's going to take me a while to get out there. So I'm going to have to head out, but we got through pretty much most of this. And like I said, I posted the links out. So let me read these real quick. Joey, thank you for the 2. I appreciate you. And Tammy, thank you for the 5. The side with the better case does not need third-party assistance, such as amicus briefs like Johnny Depp. I gotcha. I wasn't really around Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, so I don't know too much about that, but I know vaguely what went down and how that turned out, but this is not something I've seen before, so thank you. All right, I appreciate you guys. I got to get back to work now. See you later.